going to answer the question that I probably get the most. That is not a health-related question. Is how do I become an herbalist? I want to do this so badly. How do I learn? What do I need? This is definitely the question that we get asked the most that's not health-related. And so we decided to devote some time to answering the question. Hey, IG. Hey, y'all. Hey, YouTube. So the best way for us to manage the comments and the questions that come in along the way, head over to our YouTube channel if you're on IG. We would love it if you did that. But we'll keep the live up here, but we would love it if you did that.
But that's where you can ask your questions. That's where you can ask your questions, and we can get your specific questions answered, which is always our goal with these lives.
It's like Tammy just woke up.
I know. Well, I was orienting the screen in front of us because I wanted to have everything easily. Anyway, that's what I was doing, and I did just wake up.
So we have the chat on our YouTube. That's much easier for us to navigate. So if you're on IG, head to our YouTube page, YouTube channel, Iwilla Remedy, to be able to ask your questions. And the question for those who are just joining in, we are going to talk about how do I become an herbalist? This is by far the question that I get most often, whether it's an email, DM. It's like, I want to do this. I want to know how to do this. How do I get started? What do I need? Do I need to be certified? Do I need to be licensed? Do I need to enter a degree program? And it's valid because there's like no clear-cut path for people to become an herbalist. And the number one mistake that folks make, particularly in the United States, just because of how things are structured here, is thinking, well, I have to become certified to be an herbalist. And the reality is that in the United States, any type of certification that people are getting, it is a certificate of completion. There's no licensing body in the United States that is saying, hey, everyone who's an herbalist, these are the guidelines of what you need to learn, what you need to study, your proficiency skills. There's nobody that does that in the United States. It's not structured in the same way that it is like if you are a medical professional, which you need an MD or a DO. Even our naturopathic doctors, they are not licensed in every state in the United States.
Right.
So if the American Medical Association and the FDA and insurance companies, if they're not going to allow naturopathic doctors, they ain't allowing us.
So wait a minute.
Yeah.
So for a naturopath, I want to make sure I understand. So for a naturopathic doctor, let's say we're located in Atlanta, Georgia. In Georgia right now, they couldn't go to New York and practice?
Not necessarily. Every state, for the licensing of who can practice medicine, that is state by state. The only across the board in the United States, MDs and DOs, and they are under, that's what board certified, they're under the American Medical Association. But naturopathic doctors have their own association, and they can only practice in certain states, not being under an MD or a DO.
Gotcha.
So like we have naturopathic doctors in Georgia, but they don't take insurance. It's like you got to recognize the whole pipeline of our healthcare in the United States and how that's structured and who's allowed to like officially be in it. And naturopathic doctors are also in the gray.
Okay.
And we are even more in the gray.
So MDs and DOs
nurses
are not in the gray.
They are not in the gray.
Okay. And so naturopathic doctors and
colonized,
herbalists are in the gray.
Definitely in the gray. Okay. We're even more so in the gray because at least as a naturopathic doctor, there is a licensing body. There is a schooling that says these are the standards that every naturopathic doctor is going to go through. There's a residency equivalent, I think. Then they're only like in maybe like family medicine.
Okay.
Like naturopathic doctors are not going to be surgeons unless they're MDs also.
Okay. So only an MD can be a surgeon.
MD-DO.
MD-DO can be a surgeon. Okay. And what's a DO?
Doctor of Osteopathic. Is that what it's called? Doctor of Osteopathic. But even they used to get made fun of. I mean, we know that.
I know.
But like MD-DO, those are equivalents, and those are licensed in the United States.
Okay. And herbalists in the United States are not licensed.
Not licensed. The only certificates that you're receiving, whether you go through, there's now, because of money, right?
Right.
Now there are like degrees in herbal sciences. You can do health sciences, not quite the same. Of course, you can do botany, like you can do plant chemistry. More schools are like universities are coming out with herbal programs, but because they know that its popularity has grown. So maybe you can get a BA in herbal sciences or a master's in herbal medicine from, I'm thinking like the Maryland Institute or some other place.
Mm-hmm.
But in terms of practicing as an herbalist, no uniform certification, no uniform licensing. That's just like, you got your master's degrees in this.
Okay. So number one mistake, thinking.
Or your bachelor's degree in this.
So number one mistake, thinking I can become a certified herbalist in the same way as a doctor becomes a board certified doctor.
Yeah, it doesn't exist.
It doesn't exist. So even if you go and you get a master's, it's a master's. You
can get a master's in herbal, maybe in herbal sciences. The schools are changing because they want some of that too.
But that's still not the equivalent of being able to legally practice under a governing body.
Right, correct.
Okay.
Correct.
So that's the number one mistake.
Because I think that people want the certification because they want to feel like, there's legitimacy. And there is. Like, we have to remember with herbal medicine, that Ovia said in the chat, herbal medicine's been colonized. Like, everything has been colonized. Mm-hmm. So we have to remember that there is legitimacy within this work, and we don't need somebody to grant that to us. This is the people's medicine. Plants and humans co-evolved together. If herbal medicine didn't work, pharmaceutical companies wouldn't be researching plants to then make pharmaceuticals from them. Like, they work. And I think that is one of the things that we kind of have to separate ourselves from, is that colonized mindset that it's like, well, if somebody didn't say I wasn't good enough to do this, or like, this is what I need to do, then it must not be legitimate. I must not be an authority in this space. Mm-hmm. And all of the programs, it doesn't matter what people come from, none of that actually says that you're capable.
Right.
None of that says that you're proficient. None of that says that you're actually skilled. You have to know that. And so that's what's a part of this conversation too, is understanding, like, how do I forge your own path for myself in a field that has no universal infrastructure, mm-hmm. and which is good and bad, right? Like, there's advantages and drawbacks to it. And continuing to understand what I need to learn so that I am proficient, so that I am capable. Because we can, obviously, like, we can see clients, herbalists can have clinics, we can have schools, we can educate. We're largely educators. We can have product lines. So we operate in this licensing gray, but we still get to do our thing within following very specific guidelines of what you can't do. Don't pretend to practice medicine.
Right. Don't pretend you're a doctor.
Don't pretend to be a doctor. Be clearly an herbalist, which is largely an educator.
Mm-hmm. Okay. So that's the number one mistake.
That's the number one mistake. And that's like why we have the thumbnail the way it is on YouTube, and we have the question the way it is on YouTube, because that's the question that comes up that people are most often asking. Like, well, where do I get certified? What do I need? What do I need to do to learn? And who do I need to learn it from that's going to make me capable? I think that's really the question, mm-hmm. because people too, I see a lot, and ours is a certificate of completion as well. Mm-hmm. And we say that
for herbal medicine for the soul.
Herbal medicine for the soul. And it's a really comprehensive program. But I think that there's so many other private organizations, like education is commoditized too. Mm-hmm. There's these little 20-minute classes. You come mm-hmm. out, you watch, 10 hours of videos, and you're certified. And it's like, what? And people are promoting that. I'm certified. I took this little, what is it? I don't want to name names, but I took this little thing, and now I'm a certified herbalist. It's like, but you just watch videos. That's the equivalent of you watching YouTube. That does not mean that you know how to make medicine,
right?
You know how to formulate, you know how to conduct intakes, you know how to see clients, you know how to teach. That doesn't mean anything. So people really need to separate almost their value from this whole idea of certification. because it's too closely tied.
Yeah.
Like if I'm certified, and that means I'm capable and I'm valuable and I'm smart and I can do it. And it's like, no, because one, the certification doesn't mean anything for real, and you haven't done anything.
Well, the certification in that sense is you completed watching possibly
maybe
all of these teachings.
Mm-hmm.
With that said, there's not necessarily any practical application of said information.
Right.
So you can't then put on a badge of saying, I'm an herbalist, now let me see clients. Because I would say...
People wear that, they do though.
But
that's the danger.
Right. And so that is the danger. And so I know I'm going to take you off of your script, but here's my question.
Questions too. Y'all can ask.
Because we went through herbal training as well, you decided that you wanted to continue further down this path. I do more of the business side of this path. And so give me a year. Give me a year of learning. How long until you were like, okay, I feel really confident to see clients? And then the second part of that is the type of client. Because there's different types of clients. Like you can see people and be like, I am just going to work on first date. Or I'm just going to you got a cold, I got you. Things like that. And then really, really intense things like I have hypothyroidism. Yeah. I have stage 2 cancer, right? Yeah. So 2 separate questions. One, when did you feel proficient enough to say, okay, I want to go and I want clients to
almost
come
the way
to
I
me?
felt like I had earned the title. So I think for a while, it kind of felt like an affirmation. It's like, yep, I'm a clinical herbalist. 5 years.
5 years.
But 5 years in action.
Okay. So you finish your training. Okay. Yeah. And you come out. So let's be really honest and transparent. You come out, because even people that will come out of our course, right? You come out, you've done this intensive training, you've learned, right? You've taken in this information. From that was three years of taking in information. Yeah. Well, yeah, it was it was 30. It was broken up, but 36 months. So it was 12-week chunks. Right. So from the time, to attach to where people may be. It was a year. It was a year of info, but it was broken up over 3 months. 3 years is how we did it. Okay. Yeah. So for someone that just completed, I just completed a course, right? It could even be our course. I just completed Herbal Medicine for the Soul, which is a 6-month intensive. Just if you did the foundational curriculum. It would take you, it's taking nobody 6 months. It's taking at least folks 8 months. Just trying to get the question out. I know. Just trying to get the question out. From that point, how long until you felt confident to see people? Well, I think that the distinction and what makes our program unique and why I don't just issue a certificate if you've watched videos is because we have competency check-ins built in along the way. So that you're not getting your certificate from us unless you've developed a protocol, unless you've done and demonstrated that you are making medicine and you know how to make it. You have to show me your formulas. So if you're not demonstrating that, then, so along the way, theoretically, you will have seen someone along the way of our program. So you'll be doing that. So it's practicum and it's taking in the information, but there's a practical application and hopefully an immediate application to it, because that's your homework assignment is to go do this thing. Then some of that synthesis, you feel definitely more capable right at the end of our program. And students have already said that. Right. Yeah. Because of how it's deliberately structured. In which you have to. Here you learn this, now go do it. Right. Okay. And then document that you did it so that when you get to week 26, you can show me that you did it. Gotcha. Okay. And so, hold on, we had a question. What do you feel like your specialty is in herbalism as an herbalist, and how did you figure out your specialty? Okay. That's a good question. So, hold on. I level 007. I like that. Give me 1 second. I want to be able to give people an idea, even if they don't do our course, of completing a course in which you are consuming information. How long would one anticipate going out and seeing a client?
But that depends.
But I'm just asking for you, how long was it that you felt that you could go see a client?
And I wasn't totally like
deer in headlights, like, oh my God.
I mean, I would still say it was probably that 5 years. But the reason why I say that depends is because I worked on us for a long time.
Yes.
Yeah. And then I asked friends to be volunteers as clients. Like, I want to go through the intake process. Will you volunteer so I can practice? It was free. Go through the whole protocol process together. I mean, I could, like, what client did I actually feel like, oh, okay, I got this?
Okay.
Shit, that might have been like a couple years ago. I don't know.
Right. Okay.
Like, it's inside. I think the question's complicated because there's so much like imposter syndrome and stuff that happens too. And that the degree of client complexity, that also grows too.
Right.
While you're in motion.
Well, the reason I'm asking the question the way I'm asking it is because I do see so often, I'm an herbalist. I went through this course and I'm an herbalist. I have, it doesn't even have to be through a course. I have met people that say I have a tea line and it's not a beverage tea line, but it is like a tea line. It's a therapeutic tea line. And my question is, like, how did you learn that these could go? And they were like, oh, I don't. I just put it together. Sure. And I was like, oh, you could do a lot of harm to somebody. Yeah. And so I'm asking that question to give people some sense of how much it takes to really feel confident to step out and see people, because people become complicated quite quickly, right?
Yeah, but that's why I say too, it's like you have to be in motion, like you have to be in action. And that doesn't just mean you are in the books. You have to apply. Mm-hmm. That's why it's safe. There's safe communities in which you can apply what you're learning. Mm-hmm. That's your family. Right. And then those are your friends where you can ask the question, can I serve and support you? I need practice in this. Right. Because there's different schools that have like built-in clinics. So then students do get a ton of in-person practice. So that levels up your skills. And someone's right there who was like, okay, you're not gonna kill anybody because there's a school founder that's right there that has 30 more years of experience than you. Mm-hmm. So that's why it's like, it's the action. And so the years kind of depend on how much action are you taking in that time. Gotcha. And so we didn't have a built-in clinic. So this was really me saying, I'm going to keep pushing myself to do this work. And so nobody knows me yet as an herbalist. Well, I got to go out and tell people, this is what I'm doing. Can I help you? Can I help you? Can I help you?
Right. But you had to feel confident that to
be confident enough to do that.
You could help without harm.
Yes.
And that was, I think that's the really big caveat. Yeah. It's like, I want to help. I want to help. But more importantly, I don't want to do any harm. I want to go as far as I can go today. This isn't something where I'm like, stretch me.
Right. I'm not volunteering myself. I mean, that did happen. We tell that story too, but I'm not volunteering myself to help someone who has cancer as a beginner. I'm not doing that. Right. That happened. They were like, Slee, well, you're studying this, so come on. But I knew my lane, my level of responsibility was like, I can give you dietary support. And I can say, here are some nutritive plants, but in terms of like helping you manage symptoms that while you're going through radiation and chemo, I'm not there yet.
Gotcha.
So I didn't offer to be there yet.
Right. Okay. So that's good.
But that timeline from like, I think too many people as beginners are like, especially with a certification, are overestimating their capability. Right. So it's like high levels of capability, but low level of skill. Mm-hmm. And then as you learn more, then it's kind of like imposter syndrome starts to come in because you realize how much you don't know, and that your skill increases. And then hopefully that meets at some point where it's like, it's my skill level is matching and my arrogance is coming way down. So that we match, like skill and proficiency are right there.
Gotcha.
But that's also like, that's internal too.
Yeah, that's, I mean,
Yeah.
only you'll know.
Only you'll know that. And then you have to, like, we have a video on imposter syndrome, but you also have to talk yourself out of those things. And that's been a long struggle of mine, where it's like, it was harder for me to see that I know as much as I know and the ways in which I can help people, and I'm underestimating myself.
Yeah, it's a very delicate balance, because there have been times that I've been like, what's going on? Like, you totally got this.
Yeah, I even started this class yesterday, the macronutrients and micronutrients, and it had like some research questions, like introducing the class with these research questions that I think the class is meant to answer. And I'm like, oh yeah, I'm answering them in my mind, like, oh yeah, I can do that, do that, do that, do that, do that. And that was a moment to be like, Seema, you know a lot more than you think.
You do know a lot.
But in the beginning, I think that's a real kind of like reality check for people. It's like arrogance, like overconfidence, low skill. That's dangerous.
Right.
When you want to work directly with people.
Right.
You know what I mean? If you just decide, I just want to teach about plants, that's different than offering and extending them.
And it's, right.
Yeah.
So let's answer 007. What do you feel like your specialty is as an herbalist, and how did you figure out your specialty?
That's good. That's a really good question. Tammy might have different opinions about this. I came into it stating that I'm going to help and support people who have also experienced trauma, and help people who craft like a personal healthcare system in the way that I had to be able to overcome trauma. And that's how I position myself. And that's what I like my practice to really be viewed as truly holistic, where it's not just diet, lifestyle, here's some herbs. It's also what is going on inside of you. What is that emotional, mental conversation that's happening? What's the root of that? Because it's in my belief system, that's from my experience, that all of my issues went away when I healed childhood trauma. Mm-hmm. That was like the big aha. And I love that there's a larger conversation happening now around trauma and around how that affects our brain and our decisions and our behavior and all of those things. Mm-hmm. I think that also goes back to the point of like my trauma is mine, but other people, like this is the complexity of trauma in and of itself. Like that is very complex too. But I like to think of, with that, I'm hesitant to say that that's my specialty because I also understand the complexity of trauma and how that manifests in many different ways. So in some ways, I'm also kind of like a generalist. I'm not condition specific because my belief system is that it's manifesting as a result of what's happening in here. Mm. So we're going to work on the condition. We're going to work on lifestyle. We're going to work on diet. We most importantly need to work on what's happening in here. But I also understand that people's readiness, talking about the complexity of trauma, people's readiness to go to the trauma is so varied and so different. And we can try to like force people into like, just let's just handle the wound. Let's just handle the inner wound and all of this will go away. But they're not ready for that.
It's a big ask.
It's a big ask. It's a big ask. They're not ready for that. And so the working on the diet, the lifestyle, the movement, understanding more about how the condition expresses itself, what's the support to alleviate the pain that's happening in the body, mm-hmm. all of those things strengthen people to do the deeper inner healing work. Then I also recognize that once people feel strong enough, they might stop. Well, they might stop, or they might work with someone else at that point too. So,
I mean, I would say that you help craft a holistic personal healthcare system.
Yeah.
Because it is not like come here and we're going to have a really quick conversation. Anyone that's ever done a consultation with Salima knows it's not quick. And so it's a really in-depth consultation process in which every facet of your life
we got to talk about
is talked about and touched. And you, like, herbs are going to be part of that protocol, but herbs aren't going to be the only thing part of that protocol. And that's why I really think of it as a holistic healthcare personal healthcare system, because you're saying, here's you as a whole. I understand you came to me for this one specific issue. Got it. Now we're going to zoom out. We're going to look at you as a whole, and we are going to create building blocks for you to build yourself back up. And when you get to a certain point, if we continue working together, great. And if we don't, and you go on to someone else, that's great too. But when you come here, this is about building
those pillars, like those foundational health pillars for people, because people, and it does kind of happen within that intake interview where people begin to see, because I asked so many questions, all of the ways in which they are living in a way that's not congruent with how they want to feel. And so the conversation is just as much about me getting to know a person and like getting a whole picture of their life as it is for them to recognize, like, oh, I have tension here, I have here, I have it here, I have it here, I have it here. And everything that we experience impacts our health.
Right.
Either improving it or making it worse. So that's a good question.
Yeah.
But to that question too, like there's a lot of people who are like, I just focus on gastrointestinal issues,
right,
or I just focus on neurological issues. So that's a part of this, like, how do I become an herbalist question too, where I do think you start broad and then maybe based on your experience or based on your interests, you may narrow your focus.
And I think that really only comes with being in action.
You gotta be in action.
Right? I'm trying to think of when it was when you first started, it was deep about trauma, because you were, you were out of it, but you were still close enough to remember what it felt like and what everything was. I can see that your work has really grown over the years, that you talk about trauma less and you talk more about the whole person and being like, we need to address all of you. And when we start addressing all of you, the trauma is going to obviously come into the conversation, but it's almost like you stop putting the spotlight on the trauma, put the spotlight on the person, and like, let's strengthen you as a whole instead of focusing on what is hurting you.
Yeah.
So I've really seen over the years that that's how your work has grown. Even the way that you start talking about things and asking new questions of, like, for example, how does an herb affect the brain, right? So like asking these new really deep questions to further help someone really build that understanding of themselves and giving language, because you do a really great job of taking these really big, complex subjects with $20 words. And I mean, to me, they are $20 words, and then bringing it down into building blocks that someone can understand, that can digest, and then can move forward with, and not get stuck in the lingo of being like, I don't understand, and so then I do nothing. And it's not like that. Like, and I've really seen how your work has grown. And in that, I also, like, the question always is, how do I become an herbalist? And living with an herbalist, I was like, God, that is such a big question, because it's not just take these herbs and that's it. It's not like drink some chamomile tea. And it's so much deeper to really, I don't want to say get your hooks in someone, but to really get someone to pull themselves out, because that's what they're doing, to pull themselves out of their rut and using herbs as a
There's a pathway to do that.
But but it's not just the herb. Like the herb is helping what is inside of you already, and the language that is needed to help someone understand that is so complex and is so specific to each person that when you're talking to someone, you get a feeling of where they are, and you can tailor the message so that they can receive it in that moment.
Yeah. And that comes with experience. Again, that comes with experience. But this is why I do think that if people want to become herbalists, I am a big fan of getting into programs, of getting into things that are structured, because I see so many people who are completely overwhelmed. There is way too much information available to us. And there's a ton of misinformation. You don't know. It's not even like you don't know what you don't know. You don't know how to discern what's helpful and what's not, right, as a beginner. So allow someone to share their framework for you, for introducing you to different aspects of this work. And then from there, you can decide. I think that this idea of herbalists being self-taught is completely false, because the ones who are most self-taught have 1,000 books, which is great. And that's someone's synthesis. So nobody is self-taught. I deeply disagree with that idea, that people are self-taught. But I think that structure and like a step 1, step 2, step 3, step 4 is really helpful, because people have a tendency in our excitement to learn more and more and more. It's like, okay, well, today I'm learning about burdock root. And then tomorrow I'm learning about neurons. And then the next week I'm learning about meditation. that's going to take you so long to figure out how to put it all together.
Right.
Into what an herbal practice or I like the word, what an herbal practice can be in a way that can serve and support somebody else. And we also have to make the assumption too, that if you want to be an herbalist, then I'm assuming that you want to work with people and not because there's so many definitions, not like I want to be an herbalist who's a medicinal farmer or grower. Don't want to work with people at all. So we're really just tailoring this conversation like you want to work with people in some capacity.
Right, because we're not farmers, so we can't really give a whole lot of insight there.
Right.
Was there a question? Which books do you recommend to increase knowledge about the practice of science of herbal medicine?
There's a lot of good ones. I mean, David Hoffman's is right there. Medical Herbalism is really good. I think the reality, what has helped me the most is get into some science classes. Get into science classes. Take biology. Go back, high school, whatever. Take biology. Take chemistry. It will help so much. Take anatomy and take physiology. That's one of the disadvantages of our industry kind of living in this gray and not having very clear cut guidelines on what people can and I don't say should, but need to learn if you want to serve and support people. We need to learn more about just basic, how does the body function? That's a huge missing gap, which is why we emphasize it a lot inside of Herbal Medicine for the Soul. Because that's a big missing piece. And then because we're in the gray, most people are doing both. If they are into herbal medicine and being holistic, that does not mean that they are not going to the doctor, that they're not getting labs, that they're not on pharmaceuticals. That's a handful of folks that I think that I work with who are strictly I don't go to the doctor and I don't take pharmaceuticals. Most of my clients do both. And so I can't support them and not do harm if I don't understand what are they taking, how is that going to potentially interact with the herbs. If they're we have a case study coming up where someone is on 11 prescriptions. That is very complex, and most people don't know how to do that.
Right.
Don't know how to do the research to be able to serve and support people. What is the best way that I can serve and support these people with this person without doing harm? And that may be not recommending herbs at all, depending on what those medications are, which I still have to do all of
All
the
the
research
research
on.
to understand.
So it's like if we don't understand the biomedical model, and that's the primary, this is the country we live in, folks. So that's the healthcare system that most people are getting their care from.
That they're part
Good
of.
or bad care, doesn't matter. Traumatized care, not being served and supported. Like, we recognize all of those things, but the reality is that we don't understand that. We place ourselves in a position to potentially do more harm.
Right.
So I recommend just get yourself in some science classes. Just do it.
So 007 appreciated your earlier response, but I missed this. Do you have any advice about this? They also have been trying to figure out a way to approach trauma realistically through herbalism and nutrition.
I'm not sure I understand the question.
Well, it's not a question, it was a statement.
Oh,
but I was
okay.
asking you if you had any other insight in helping them figure out the way to approach trauma realistically through herbalism and nutrition. Like, for example, I think the way that you have developed your practice over the years has been really helpful for people that come to you experiencing trauma. I mean, we have hundreds of students, and trauma is pretty much at the heart of.
I mean, we live in the United States, so
all of it. And I think that looking at the person as a whole, and you gotta get in where you fit in. So you also have to understand your strengths in terms of a practitioner. But looking at the person as a whole, I have found has been a pretty good doorway.
Yeah, because even though, so I talk a lot about trauma, even though those, like, it's trauma, herbalism, and nutrition. To Tammy's point, everyone talk about all of those things in your content, right? I think that being able to create educational micro content around what you're doing actually really helps you synthesize your own ideas and bring things together. Like, I might have a notes app that's full of thousands of notes. And sometimes I'll just scroll all the way back to when we started on Instagram, which was in 2018, 19. And I'm like, oh, that's how I wrote about that. That's how I wrote about that. Like, okay. So I think that practice actually really helps you formulate your ideas. And to Tammy's point around the whole person, just because we talk about all of those things, when a person is in front of you, that does not mean that their trauma is their entry point. Mm-hmm. Rarely, it's usually, for me, my guidepost or like litmus test, if you will, is someone has the right diet. They've got all the health foundations in place. They already a little bit more holistic minded. They're familiar with herbs, and they're still experiencing pain. Then it's like, you're ready. They have the movement, they have the foundations, and now it's time to go deeper.
Right.
But for the folks who are like nutrition, if we're still eating sad American diet, if we don't have a spiritual practice or some kind of, I call it spiritual practice, but whatever that is that allows you to emotionally regulate yourself, feel spiritually centered, feel grounded, be in your voice, feel like you're in your power, you're not shrinking. We don't have that in place. We don't have the movement in place. That's going to be very difficult to have them skip to trauma. So in that regard, I really feel like plants are the openers, because some of the things that you were saying around crafting language, around how to explain how plants work with people, and I just let the plants do that, especially when people are dealing with like deep grief. And I can say, I know this plant is really going to serve and support you. It's not until they take it that they understand what I meant. So I kind of let the plants be the openers for that, like, emotional and mental softening. But if we don't have the foundations in place, people can't even sustain doing the trauma healing work. Like, even biochemically, inside of our gut microbiomes and our brain chemistry, they can't sustain it. So we have to get those foundations in place first.
Right.
If you have questions, hop onto our YouTube channel to ask the questions, because we have the chat up there, and the Instagram.
The Instagram is very hard to respond to, because the phone is all the way over there.
But we are answering the questions inside of YouTube. So hop to our YouTube channel. And yes, today we're talking about how do I become an herbalist? Because that is by far the number one non-medical question that I receive in the DMs weekly,
Everywhere.
in the emails, all the time. So we just wanted to hop on and offer as much value as we can. So we already talked about certification, not real in the United States. You are, I don't want to say never.
Don't say never.
I'm not going to say never.
That comes to kick you in the butt. Don't say never.
I know, but we are not close, perhaps, to being like medically licensed practitioners in the United States. And there are so many other countries where herbal medicine is fully integrated into the healthcare model. You know, the United States is the United States.
Not one of them right now. And that's
so that is the first thing. So your educational path, because I think, that's what we were saying. Part 2 of that is I'm a big fan. You can do you, but I am a big fan of getting into programs, getting into something that is structured, that is going to help you start developing in this work.
Yeah.
It's huge. Like if you knew what all you need to know, you would probably choose something else. Because it's not just plants. People think that like I'm hugging trees and climbing trees and sniffing flowers all day. And I wish.
Sometimes you are climbing trees and sniffing flowers. That's very rare.
But I wish. So get into some kind of structured program. We have 2, Family Pharmacy and Herbal Medicine for the Soul, but there are many others. Think about your budget. You know, yes, more universities are coming out with their own like herbal sciences programs. That doesn't mean you're certified. It just means you went that path and you probably spent a lot of money for it, which it is what it is. Because I think for some of us too, if we're mid-career, if we're in our 30s, 40s, and already done the degrees, I am not trying to start a bachelor's degree all over again. Like, you got to be kidding me.
Right.
So think about that. But I will say that a part of that educational path, the foundational sciences will be incredibly helpful. And then in terms of the other modalities that you decide to bring into your herbal practice, that depends on you and your interests. That can be meditation, that can be somatic work, that can be yoga.
Well, that's a great segue into Lucy.
Acupuncture. There's so many. Medical astrology.
Medical astrology
is a big part of mine. A big part of like how I get to see people through medical astrology and make those connections and help them see themselves on paper. So there's lots of different modalities that you can incorporate into your herbal practice and just get additional training on that are not going to necessarily be included in like if you go to get a BA in herbal sciences. That's going to be very academic, and there's drawbacks and advantages to that too.
And that's what it is.
And that's what it is. What else?
I think that's it for the chat. Again, on IG, if you have specific questions, pop over to our YouTube at Iwilla Remedy, because we can't answer them in the with our current setup.
I know, like, sorry. But we are answering them. But I did want to provide more books. So there's David Hoffman's Medical Astrology. It's
phytochemistry?
No, phytotherapeutics, it's by Carrie Bone. It's like 1,000 more plus pages.
With a C or a K?
KERRYBON. Maybe it's phytotherapy. Let me find it. Hold on.
Carrie Bone. Selena's gonna find the book. I can offer zero assistance in this regard.
Oh, yes, here it is.
That
Principles and Practice. Yeah. Of Phytotherapy. Carrie Bone, Bone.
Oh boy.
Chat.
Principles.
Ooh, we got work on that spelling. Boom.
Principles and practice.
No apostrophe. We're putting in the chat. Principles and Practices of Phytotherapy by Carrie Bone, Bone. And there's another co-author, Simon Mills.
Therapy. And Simon Mills. It's a lot to type. I'm going to get it. 2 L's for Mills?
They'll get it. They're
They'll
gonna
get
get it. Y'all are gonna
You're
get it.
gonna figure it out.
Google's gonna autocorrect.
It's gonna
all
help
that.
all that
out. That is a very good one. Dr. Jill Stansberry. She has a 5-volume. Yeah, Dr. Jill Stansberry, Stansbury. She has oh my gosh, Bury. She has a 5-volume book, because you're talking about science. So I put science into clinical practice, and this is where I jumped from David Hoffman's to take science classes, because I found that even within, nobody's giving you the whole like physiology lesson. And there's an assumption with these clinical books that you have the foundation of biology, chemistry, anatomy, and physiology. So when you're reading it, there's still going to be, if you don't have that, you're going to read it and be like, what are they talking about? Because that would be, that would be too much to include to get you up to speed, and then to talk about the herbs that serve and support this. And these are all like conditioned. This is just like conditions and how to address them with plants, and how on a biochemical level they work. So this is none of the like, Dr. Jill Stansberry, she does go into it. But in terms of like the emotional aspect, how to move through that, the mental work that needs to be moved through. And this is what I saw with a lot of clinical herbalists, that was always like an aside. Like, yeah, you got to do, you got to reduce your stress, and you got to work on your emotions. And then paragraphs of how the work, the plants work chemically, interacting with the cells. But and like the inner work was always like, and you got to do that stuff too. But I think that's the stuff that's actually the heart of the work. So it's just knowing what you're reading when you pick up those books. They can still be very confusing if you don't have some of that foundation, that science foundation.
Yeah.
But how you bring in all of the mental, emotional, spiritual work, that's unique to you.
Yeah, I felt when you took sciences that really elevated.
It filled in so many gaps that it was just like, I'm going through all of these different resources to find the answer to a single question. And I'm like, oh, it was in biology. And I think that is some of the reason why some of us, like things like, the alkaline diet, like that kind of make holistic practitioners not seem as well educated. That it's like the alkaline diet, there is no physiological way that is making your blood alkaline. But we can talk about that at another date.
Well, we did a whole class on it.
It's like, this doesn't make sense. So those are some other good books. So just know what you're reading when you're reading them.
Right. Mm-hmm. What else you got for the people, Salima? I know there were questions in IG. So again, if you want to get your specific question answered, please pop over to YouTube, pop it in the chat. We'll absolutely answer it. We apologize that we can't answer it on IG. Nia, I don't know if we can get into that whole conversation right now. What is your opinion on the alkaline diet?
I did a whole post on it.
Yeah.
The alkaline diet, the idea, this is why it gets a pass. Because for most people who are coming from the South American diet to eating more fruits and vegetables, they are going to feel better. Does the alkaline diet make your blood alkaline? No, it does not. That's the short end. That's the short end of it. There is no way that physiologically can happen. And our bodies work at very narrow ranges, pH being one of them. And then different tissues have different ranges of pH. So the stomach pH is extremely acidic. Urine pH is different. pH of the skin is different. The microbiome is different. But we have all of these homeostatic systems within our bodies, pH being one, glucose management another, blood pressure, another. Like your body is designed to operate and function optimally in a narrow range of these things. So when we get to the extreme, talking about I'm too acidic and too alkaline, you are on death's door. So we don't want our diet to change the pH of our blood. And that is, as soon as it hits the pH of the stomach, that's impossible anyway. So that's the short end of it. But what the diet does do is help generally, if they're not too strict or rigid, it helps them eat better, depending on
where they're starting.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, because it can make a lot of people also feel worse.
Yeah.
But yeah, we did a whole class on it.
Yes, we did. It was very enlightening.
Did a little short post on it. It was. What else?
What's that? A doctor told you your work as an herbalist is harder than his?
He sure did. I can't say his name because he didn't give me permission to do that. Right. But this is one of the top doctors, I can just say, in the state of California. And he said, your job is harder than mine. And he was right. Because we don't have infrastructure, and he admitted it. He was like, you got to know what you need to know, like just this whole plant world. That he was like, I don't know anything about that, and you've got to figure out how to get your own medical degree. And it's like, yeah, that's exactly right. And psychology, and it's like, yeah, right. So we're like really piecemealing things together if we truly want to serve and support people holistically. Mm-hmm. Now that doesn't mean you have to be in that role for all the people that you serve and support, but know that when someone is coming to you and they need deeper support through therapy, through counseling, mm-hmm. you have to send them to that support. That doesn't mean that you become the therapist for all people. I think that lines can get blurred in that way too, unless you are a therapist. So, and then knowing when is the time, I have said that to people probably on the phone. Oh yeah, when the woman came in here, literally from the hospital, it's like, you need to go back. You have to, no. You have to tell people, go to the doctor. Because then you're in this blurry line of you're faking practicing medicine. No, you really have to know when herbalism shines and how you can help and serve and support people, and when they really need to go and seek other care. So that's why you do need to know about these other disciplines to a degree, to enough to know, not right, nope, go there and go there and go there.
But I also want to make the distinction that it's not just herbalism as a whole, but it's really you as the herbalist, mm-hmm. of saying, no, you need to go to other care because this isn't where I'm going to be able to shine. It's not that herbs can't help. Yeah. It's not that herbs can't do what is needed, but that's not my lane. And it's mm-hmm. really about you personally understanding where you start and stop.
I mean, but you have to know enough. That goes back to the beginning of that conversation of overconfidence, lack of skill. Mm-hmm. I think a lot of people come into this space and they're like, we can do everything with plants, because they don't know enough about the body to know mm-hmm. at what stage. Yes, we can do a lot with plants. Absolutely. We can do more than most people expect. But someone's stage, where they are in a disease process, where they are when they come. Remember the woman who came in with ketoacidosis? She had literally just left the hospital and she's coming in here. And it's no, you are not at a stage that I can support you responsibly. You have to go back to the hospital. Mm-hmm. So that's why you need to know about the biomedical model, so that you don't hurt people.
Right.
And there was another herbalist that she was seeing too, but that herbalist, she was also a licensed practitioner. She was able to give her a prescription. Well, I hope she was. She's like, well, this other herbalist gave me this prescription. I was like, well, I hope she was licensed. That's my assumption that she was a licensed medical professional to give her a prescription drug.
Right.
Yeah.
But so that's a good segue into, because there's also the integrated holistic healthcare that Ovia, I hope I'm saying your name right. The screen's a little far. I think it's OVIA. What is your opinion about herbalism and Western medicine?
They would work so much better together. They really do. And I think most herbalists actually know that. I think it is how our healthcare system is structured and how how the system is that keeps us out. It's not, they are not taught this. It's not in the curriculum. It's probably, still probably very far away from that. They're barely still talking about nutrition. I mean, dermatologists, like in the literature, is still saying that that diet has nothing to do with dermatology. And it's like, are you kidding me?
Right.
like it takes so long for, even when it's new research,
to catch up,
for that to be incorporated into the medical system's practices. But they will work so much better together. And the other countries who do that, like thinking about cancer therapy with herbal medicine, and the outcomes are always better. Right. But we know who has the grips on our system here.
Right. And also the doctors that we do know, and seeing how, even the doctors within our program, seeing the great success that they have had with that marriage.
Yeah, when they are in a position where they kind of work by themselves and can do that, and they are able to sneak in some plants, they can. And then the other ones who they can't, like thinking like they cannot deviate at all from the differential diagnosis, and this is the medication by board by my license I have to give you and document that I gave you.
Right.
And I think that causes the ones who are more holistically minded, that causes a lot of frustration. And that's why we see so many leaving the field.
Right. Well, I have to say that I found it really interesting how many doctors and nurses we have in our program and continue to have in our program, and then hearing how it's being used within their practice and how beautiful it is in terms of someone's ability to heal.
It's so much better.
And then hearing the other side of that, of doctors that aren't able to do that, and the level of frustration that they can't make any progress with somebody because this is all I can do. In a 15-minute span of time, this is all I can do, and it's not enough. And I'm not, I can't say anything else, and I don't know anything else.
Right.
To do that.
Yeah, I don't know. And it's like the ones that are harmful are the ones who are like, I'm not educated on this, but there's humility to say I'm not. When patients come into the room and say, well, I've been doing this, this, and this for my blood pressure. The ones with less humility are the ones who are like, that shit doesn't work. You should stop taking blah, 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 blah. That's when we have really harmful conversations around that. Right. But the ones who have more humility will, like Dr. Rustamova, we're like, I don't know anything about that, but it's working, so keep doing it.
So keep doing it.
So keep doing it.
So that's good.
Yeah.
There was a question. Do you recommend the book Forgotten Home Apothecary?
I don't have it, so I don't know.
So you can't recommend it because you never read it.
Never read it. Never read it. Who else? So what else?
Turn the page.
Yeah, we talked about that. Like the big picture is that herbalism is more than just plants. And that's huge in and of itself.
Yeah.
Like that is huge in and of itself. But the big picture is really looking at the totality of someone's life and their lived experience and the environment that they're in currently, the environment that they have come from that informs their behavior and how they feel and what they think about health. Like we have to learn a lot. And I think people don't necessarily realize how much we need to learn being in this space. And that's why I go back to like get into a structured program that's going to introduce you to different aspects of herbal medicine. And then you're on a moving train. You know what I mean? Like then you're in action and you're heading somewhere.
Right.
As opposed to kind of swirling with where do I start?
Well, I feel like even when someone joins a program, and I would say a robust program, I would say a program that goes deep.
Yeah.
I would say a program that goes further than this is how you make a proper cup of tea.
Yeah.
Right. If you're signing up for an in-depth program, generally the beginning of that is when you kind of see like, oh wait, hold on, this is more than I thought it was. Because I know when I took my first herbalism class, I was like, I don't know what any of because it's a whole new language that you're learning also. So it was also like, I don't know what any of these words mean. I don't know what you mean when you say action in terms of a plant. Right, like there was so much that had to
talk funny.
I know there was so much to get pieced together that I was like, "There's no way I can go and help somebody." Like it was totally trial and error on myself. That I was like, "Well, let's see what this does, and let's see what that does." So I really do agree and understand when you say yes, you have to be in action. But I do think that when you join a course with a curriculum, it really starts to illuminate how much you have to know outside of what I would consider more of like the surface that you see like on social, like, yes, everyone uses social media for education and stuff, but you also have to understand that's the beginning. That's what I have to catch you with, right? And then once you're in there, now you're going to see there's so much underneath that you have to learn and understand.
Oh, you said something that made me think of something else.
Wonderful. I love
when
that
I
happens.
Forgot it.
But then that happened.
But then I forgot it. Tip of the iceberg.
Stick out your tongue. Maybe you'll hear it. You'll find it.
What?
No? Did anyone ever tell you that?
No.
If you're like, oh, I forgot something, they'll say, stick out your tongue and then you'll get it.
No.
You do that? Do that? Anyway. Tip of the iceberg. The question. Sorry. What do you think is mentally the hardest switch in taking your work and studies and routine full-time as an herbalist? Oof. Making it a lifestyle and not just a hobby or an interest.
That was a part of what I was going to say.
Oh,
you said something.
Thanks, 007.
Yes, and that is a really good question too. Like a first place to start is with yourself, and is to develop your herbal practice. So it's like, how are you working with plants every day? What does that practice look like? I always have an infusion, although the one I've been drinking lately is making me a little zippy. It's like, oh, I think I'm done with this adaptogens blend. So I have to change what my daily infusion looks like. And it's not just an ingesting of medicine, but there is that level of like, well, what plants are you actively working with? There's always going to be issues in a household. How are you supporting yourself and your family members, your community? They're close folks. This is before you offer to be, offer to do consultations for people, but just how are you witnessing plants support yourself and your loved ones?
I will say I have been Salima's test subject for
Number
many
one.
things for many years.
Like, here, go take
good,
this.
bad, and ugly.
Open up. Not too ugly, though. Just one time.
There's a lot of things that I've let you do that I'm like, am I gonna be all right?
It was just that one time. No. But yeah, I think that you need to develop an herbal practice for yourself. And I think that you need to get some familiarity and confidence in how plants have supported you. And not just like, oh, when I had a cold, I took this and I felt so much better. But like, you really have to begin to pay attention to how they're shifting that, allowing you to shift that inner conversation too. I think that we can get from that very like allopathic mindset. Actually, they don't like to be called the biomedical mindset of, well, instead of taking Sudafed, I'm going to take this elderberry syrup and think that like that is healing and that that's being an herbalist and that that's being holistic. And like we said earlier, that's just the tip of the iceberg. Mm-hmm. That's very one-to-one. It doesn't really work like that, but that is a way that people start. So like, let that be a starting point, but continue. How elderberry has so many other benefits besides supporting viral infections. Mm-hmm. learn about them. Like learn about them, and then also learn and pay attention to how it shifts your mental and emotional spaces. Learn, practice with different doses. Like that's the thing I definitely know about herbal medicine too. Is like you don't know it if you don't know how it feels. You don't, this is not like offering a prescription, right? I probably shouldn't even make that equivalent, but like, of course, doctors don't try every prescription that they give.
Right.
Herbalists typically do like know how these plants feel or are well studied enough to know, like, I know I don't need to take this one before offering it to you, but that takes time. But you have to know how herbs shift the body, how different doses, how does that create shifts? Because when you're looking at a materia medica and you see a plant that supports diarrhea and constipation, which seem conflicting, you're like, how? Play with the dose, you'll find out. You'll find out, but also knowing like, don't do that with our poison plants, like don't do that. But there's that level of experimentation that we gain a lot of experience with when it comes to learning about the plants.
Mm-hmm.
You have to be able to witness it. It's very nice when everyone in the family, we did that for a while. We're all drinking the same infusions, but everyone's having a different experience with it.
And you see it and you document it. And that is part of your library of knowledge that you draw upon when you're seeing other people. I'm not sure I understand the question, Ovia or Avia. I apologize if I'm missaying your name. Are we at a level where we are bridging tech with healing?
I mean, I definitely think that's happening already. I mean, even an example of that, of like Viome, which is the gut microbiome testing, along with the personalized like report and supplements. I think we've actually been at that. I think we're just starting to see what has already been developed behind the curtain for decades. I think we're just starting to see the consumer versions of those things. Well, if that's what their question.
Well, I think means. if that's what your question, then the tech you're seeing today is already old.
Yeah.
And there is other tech that is already created on the horizon. But generally, by the time mainstream sees tech, it's old.
It's old.
That has been around. And for us, the way we use tech I don't know about with healing, but with herbalism or with as a practitioner, it's more about show me your labs. It's more about really show me what technology, the questions technology can answer. And now let's see like what your blood work is like, what your stool sample came back at, what your, like all of those things. And now let's address them in these different ways. And so that's the way we use tech in the practice just from an herbalism perspective, just from a consultation perspective.
To AI can, I mean, the thing about AI is information that we put in already. So some of it's right and some of it's wrong. So I think that I think it can get real screwy for people who are new. But like Dr. Rahul said, and we agreed with, he's a gastroenterologist, higher level. And he said that he's like, for mid-career professionals, AI is super helpful because you already know what you're doing. You already know what you're doing. So then when it generates something that doesn't sound right, you can spot it. And that's where I think it can be helpful. Like even one way use it is to help with solubility so that you can make better medicine. That's one way that can be very helpful. I think in terms of herbal recommendations, I think is just as right or just as wrong as the internet has always been when it comes to offering up some information is accurate, some information is not.
Right.
but you don't, as a beginner, you have no idea. So you just try it.
Yeah, I don't believe from a mainstream perspective that AI is replacing herbalists. And I think speaking just from an herbal perspective, I believe that we use AI as a thought partner. I believe that you use it, you look at your practice and you look at the things that you do more than 3 times. And that's where you use AI to make you more, what's the word I'm looking for?
Efficient?
Yes. More efficient in what you do, which then frees up brain space, which frees you up to see more people, to learn something new. Mm-hmm. I think that's the space we're at with AI right now from a mainstream perspective. But again, if tech is mainstream right now, it's already old. So there's already something else. But I think if you wanted to use it today, right now, as an herbalist that is considered like mid-career, like you know something, right? Mm-hmm. You're not just beginning. Then look at the thing that you do 2-3 times and use AI as a means, as a thought partner, or to do those tasks for you, to free up that brain space for you to take that class you wanted to take, mm-hmm. to learn something new, or to free up your calendar to see more clients. I think that's kind of where we are with it right now.
Yeah, I think one of the ways that I really like using it when I'm coming across medical literature that I'm like, I read that whole paragraph and I got nothing. Mm-hmm. I will put that, copy and paste that paragraph into AI and say, explain this to me like I'm a medical school student. And that's actually very helpful. But yeah, I think an interesting way to test it is with something that you are already really proficient at.
Yeah.
So if you're a therapist, test it with your practice. Like you already know these things, then you can really start to spot the errors. Because it's not making the information that we have put on the internet in the last however many years since the internet has been around. It's not making that information more accurate. Yeah. So if we put in bad information, it's still going to spit out bad information. But there's so much volume that it has the ability to like, more people said this about this topic than this, so this is probably right.
Well, it's a predictive. We're not going to get into a whole tech conversation,
I know,
but it's a predictive measurement.
But I think if you know a subject, then that's the way to test to see kind of like what its accuracy can be. But I think that if you're brand new to a topic,
if you're brand new. Oh, if you're brand I thought you said if you're brand new a topic. Yeah. I'm like, I don't understand.
No, if you're brand new to something, then I think you should use it in that way and not try to skip steps to make yourself appear more proficient at something than you actually are. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
You just went silent. Are you reading?
I was reading. Sorry. Awkward silence.
I know. I was like, what is this on? What happened?
I know. We're going to wrap up soon so that we can pack up.
Yeah. But is that what's the question? So we got in the comments, I've had an Herbal and Remedy LLC started in 2021. I stopped mid-production because I had a fear of getting started, fully established, and then shut down.
Tarnished?
I still do my studies privately.
Yeah, let us know if you have a question. You gotta keep going.
Yeah, I mean, yeah.
That you gotta keep going.
It's good that you still do your studies.
Yeah.
But you have to ask yourself, I think the question would be that my question back would be about the fear of getting started. Like, what is that fear? Is this like, perhaps this isn't the area that you really want to work in? Maybe you feel like you need more knowledge. Maybe you want to completely pivot, or maybe it's a fear that you have to push through. You have to keep going to get on the other side of that. I think that understanding what that fear is, and then coming up with a plan of action to move through it, or to pivot into something that perhaps you want more of, or you actually want to do.
Well, Coach Tammy.
Boom, boom.
Any other questions? Those are wrapping it up. Certification, not real. They're all certificates of completion. Many paths to becoming an herbalist, practicing herbalist in the United States. None of them are uniform. So it's like really figure out what resonates with you and what's within your budget. Definitely, my perspective is get into a program because that'll introduce you to many different facets of herbal medicine, and it's guided. And then you will continue. You can continue to learn and refine what your practice and your interests are from there.
Mm-hmm.
You need your own herbal practice. So whatever that looks like, where you are in relationship with plants every day, you have to figure that out and start getting some wins with yourself. Not just physically, but also mentally, emotionally, spiritually as well, and within your family members. Are those the three? And then know that it's way bigger than just plants. Way bigger. So the foundational sciences are a part of that. Psychology is a part of that. Other somatic, meditation, different healing modalities can be a part of your practice. It will come together as you are in motion. You don't have to have all of that defined, but know that there is more than just plants involved in being able to support people with their well-being. Plants can be at the center of that, but diet, nutrition matters, movement matters, stress, lifestyle matters, trauma matters. Yeah.
We have one more question. How do you two approach the issue of money, paying for classes, business setup, making a worthy income? I think that holds a lot of people back from pursuing the path, seeing the compensation and value of investment.
That's a good question.
That's a great question.
We have a whole, just want to plug that in there that we have a whole business playlist on our YouTube channel. And some of that, and we also teach the business of herbalism inside of Herbal Medicine for the Soul, so that it goes through like different types of structures and basically like the ecosystem of being an herbalist, because there's not like hundreds of jobs on Indeed.com. But the few that happen, Herbal Medicine for the Soul students have grabbed them. So yeah, there's a reason why you kind of see from the people who work as full-time herbalists, why you do see this kind of like big kind of ecosystem where maybe they have a retail arm, whether that's e-commerce or brick and mortar. They teach, they have a larger program, they have smaller programs, they might have books. There's a reason for that. Did we talk about that at the last live that we did? Or was it the one before?
It was the one before.
So 2 lives ago. So there's also another.
We did the business of herbalism 2025, or it was.
Yes.
We did do a live.
Yes, that was
2
so
weeks
good.
ago.
So listen to that one too. And then I think that you have to pace yourself. I think that I don't see doing this as any different than, like, I'm investing in myself when I study what I need to know in order to be more proficient so that I can serve and support more people. Because that gets into that question of like, am I doing harm based on just information that I do not know? And that I don't want to do that. And then I don't know the name of it, but Google, there's so much that is within nice frameworks and free that you can learn from. I mentioned that nutrition class, that micronutrients nutrition class that I got into yesterday. Look up Verizon and EDX, so edX. There is a way right now where you can sign up through this Verizon program. You don't have to be a Verizon customer to get into this. I don't know. I don't know why they're doing it, whatever. It made thousands of courses free for people. And so that's why I hopped into that nutrition class because it's free. And it's already, and I like structure. It's already structured. And then there's open textbooks, like there's something else. I don't know. Look up free textbooks, look up free textbooks, and that will come up so that you can get the textbooks for the foundational sciences. But I think that you pace yourself. I think you pace yourself, and people can do one-off classes. I'm not a huge fan of one-off classes. I like programs, which is why we create more programs than one-off classes. And you invest in books. One of the ways that I've scaled back on our own book budget
Slim has a very big book budget.
is by literally going to the library and picking out, I can check out 10 books at a time. Let's go. 10 books at a time. And then I will see, which one of these do I like? Because there's so many different types of herbal books. Like some people, just kind of like into it's not diminishing it, but the pretty tea, here's some nice little recipes. And I'm like, I don't need that. That goes back. So the things that I'm looking to learn, I will go to the library, check out as many books as I can, thumb through them for that, 3-week hold that you have. And then if there's one that's like, I really want that one, that comes into the book budget at one point. But I think that you pace yourself. There's also Perlego.com. Is it Perlego? I know, another thing. That is a service. This has been helpful for me as a college professor of herbalism at Spelman now. That's been really helpful for getting access to different textbooks. And you can do like a 3-month, like a semester-long subscription. I think it's like $60. But you can put all of these books on your shelf, your digital shelf, and then somehow figure out some magical way to get access to a university library. Like that gives you a whole plethora of information too, that you have access to. But I think there's lots of ways that people can get the information that they need. And I think that's why I also think it's helpful to be in a program where you also have access to a teacher who can tell you these things, and get continuing support where you have a mentor. It's like I have people to tell me where I can get the information from.
Right.
Because there's so much information available that it's like it doesn't always need to be a whole program or a whole class. Once you get to a certain level, you know very specifically what you need to learn, you can probably just get it in the textbook.
Right. But if you want to, but I mean, I think there's a difference, right? If you wanted to do this professionally, then this is your professional investment.
I mean, yeah.
Right. But if it's more of, I think I like this, or I want to try it out, or if you're still trying to understand if this is a path for you, then you can start a book. But I think you have to know the type of learner that you are. And I think you have to understand, if you pick up the book, are you going to have more questions than answers? Right?
Yeah.
And sometimes I think the way you learn, but also at the stage where you are, that you're getting these books and you're like, oh yes, but this is also after taking so many classes to understand really a foundational level, and sometimes a much higher. And now the books are a really great companion to the knowledge that you have. I think that sometimes you have to ask yourself, why am I making this investment? I would imagine that is the first question, because if you're looking at the price tag and you're saying that's too much, then perhaps this isn't something that you're ready to do or you want to do professionally. But if you're saying it's something I want to do professionally, then it's not saying that the investment is too much and saying like a book is going to fill that, because it's not. But it's saying, it's asking new questions of, how do I get into this course? Or maybe this teacher has other courses like that I can move up the ranks with, that I can even kind of see, is this the teacher for me? Right? I think that there's other questions outside of the price tag that have to come in. And yes, books are helpful. The library is super helpful and all those things. But if the book leaves you with more questions than answers, then it's not helping you. And it's not going to fulfill the true desire. And I know when we first embarked on this, I bought book after book after book, and I had more I was like, but I have a very specific question from reading this. Who do I ask?
Yeah.
Right? And there wasn't like, yes, I could Google it, but that answer wasn't sufficient. And that's when I was like, we need a teacher. Like this isn't working.
Yeah.
And I think that the books can really help you understand or illuminate that you may need a teacher, you may not need a teacher. But it became clear pretty quickly that books alone aren't going to fill the need that we had in this work.
Yeah, that's a good point. Yeah. And then, I mean, I think that goes into beliefs as well when we talk about that inner conversation. If this is your work, why would you not be supported in pursuing it? So there's a lot of like inner work that goes along with questions around money and expense too. So I've never held that idea that I'm not supported in getting the information that I need in order to develop in my skill set that is very clearly, this is my work. Now, I think some of the things that I offer, like different creative pathways to be able to get the information, because I think that we can leap to things too. They can leap into programs. We can be like impulsive and not as discerning about like, is this the person that I want to learn from? Is this the book that I need? Is this the course that I actually need? Is it going to give me the information? And I think this is part of why we do lives too. I think that we get a lot of people who come in from other programs, y'all. I'm just going to put that right there. And I don't know what that is. If it's like, there weren't as many opportunities for folks to kind of like spend this virtual time for you to really like there's so many people, right, who have programs. How do we make a better decision? How do we make the right decision that this is the one I'm meant to be in? And I don't know.
You guys spend some time with them.
Yeah, you guys spend some time. This is why, I get on the phone with folks. We do these lives. We have a masterclass. Like, yeah. So I don't know what it is. You have to have a
conversation. You have to, in some way, you have to see how you have to see how they teach. You have to see how they show up. You have to see their level of consistency. I do think like time in work matters. I think you have, and I also think, this goes back to what this work is about. You have to trust yourself. You have to trust your own inner knowing that this is my teacher, this is my way, this is my book, this is, whatever, because that comes up a lot in this work also. And it also comes up in like having this inner knowing, but you're also trying to help people trust themselves in this work, right? So it's not just drink this cup of tea and go skip in the woods. You really are helping people trust themselves again, and you have to trust yourself in order to help someone else trust themselves. And I think when you're looking for a teacher, it becomes clear, or a mentor, it becomes clear of who that is. And that could be for now, right? That doesn't necessarily mean that this is your mentor, your teacher forever, but who do I need now, right? Don't look so far in the future that everything is blurry, right? Look and see what is in focus right now. What is it that I need now? And who is the mentor, the teacher, the book, the class for now? Because that's what gets you to the next step, to the next step, to the next step. And I think that's probably the best guiding principle that I know that we can give in how you're going to make that decision outside of just looking at the price tag of a class. I know people look at a price tag, and that's a lot of times where it stops and it's immediately like, oh, I can't afford that. And it's like, well, hold on. Maybe you need this class right now. Maybe you don't. But look in front of you that's the most in focus, and what's going to fill that need, and going from there, then you make steps going forward.
And like you're supported too. We've had people wait 5 years to come into herbal medicine for this.
We sure have. And they come, and the day that they come, they are so excited. They're like, I have been saving for 5 years for this course.
And they're ready. Like there's a lot. I think that we can, when we see something and we're like, I want to do it now, but maybe the budget doesn't say you can do it right now. It's like, if it stays on your mind, then it's going to come around. It's going to come around. I know that from like an energetic perspective too, when there are things that are important to us financially, that it's like, we don't have it right now. We put it on our budget to-do list, and we might put $5 towards it. Like, okay, this $5 is going into this pot for when it's time to hit go. Right. But I think that delay is also really important, because we can get excited in the moment. It's like, I just want to hit go now. And then if we do that, I think sometimes we experience regret. And if we allow ourselves that spaciousness to wait and develop patience, and it stays on our minds, then it's like, okay, this is something that you really want to do. It's actually, we prefer that. We actually prefer that. We do not like impulse buys. We don't like that. We tell you, like, don't try to manifest this. Get into alignment with it. That's like not great for the person that you're signing up with, and it's not great for you. So it's like, wait, like, we'll be here, or your other teacher will be here, or they won't be here, and then you probably weren't supposed to sign up. Right. like there's time for you to learn that. So it's like, patience is right. Timing is really important. Right. And honor that. And right timing looks like right finances too. Like, you don't need, unless you are in the position where you want to go into debt, like, you don't have to. No, we don't encourage that.
We don't. With that said, we also stay out of your pockets, because it's not our business. It's your business, and only you know what's right for you. And only you know what you need to do. I don't know if we can stress it enough. Like, you got to trust yourself. You've got to figure out how to trust yourself in this work, because it is not just this class, this book. It is your whole life. This is not just in a bubble. It's not just in a box. It is your whole life, and it seeps into every area. And if we can drive that one point home about the number one mistake, the number one mistake of being an herbalist, it's a certification of completion. It's not there's no real certification. But probably the second mistake is not realizing that it is your entire life. This is an embodiment. It's going to touch every area that you didn't even realize would be touched. And you've got to be in alignment in order to help people and to really be of service. We get a lot of people like, I just want to help people. And it's like, that's great, but they're not. But you got to help you first before you can help anybody else. It's just like we were talking about with like trauma, nutrition, and other practices. Like, people don't have the foundations in place, and they're not necessarily in the best position to be able to heal their trauma right now. It's the same with this. When we're not in the best place to be able to serve and support ourselves, and we don't have our foundations in place, there ain't no way I'm serving you well. And people really have to close that gap. That it's like, this is why developing your own herbal practice is one of the top recommendations. Like, you have to do that. Whatever your healthcare system, your personal healthcare system looks like, you have to be 100% committed to it. Yeah. These are non-negotiables for you, so that you have that overflow to be able to extend to others, because it doesn't work. We see so many people who leave, who I'm like, where did that person go? Like, I don't see their IG anymore. I don't see them practicing anymore. They're off of YouTube. And it's like completely burnt out because you've got to take care of yourself. Yeah. So I'd say that's the number
two
mistake.
Yeah. And it's like, and where I think some of that comes from too, like a lot of people want to save people, want to save their family. I want to save this friend. I want to save. And it's like, that's not your job. That's not your responsibility. And that's not what we do. This is not emergency medicine where it's like you are literally resuscitating someone and bringing them back to life who perhaps did not want to come back to life. But this is not emergency medicine. This is, I just have to say, this is herbalism, but it's like you don't save people. I think that, them. Yeah, like that's a separation that a lot of people need to make. Yeah. Yeah.
And it's an important, and it is an important distinction that I don't think is talked about very often, right?
We talked about it a little bit last week.
I mean, okay. Well, I think we need to talk about it more.
I know.
Because you hear it, and here's why I think we need to talk about it more, because you hear it so much. You hear it so much. I just want to help so-and-so. I just want to be of service. I just want to, fill in the blank. But when you ask the question back of what do you do for yourself? Well, I do this, and I could be better here, and I could be better there. And again, life teaches, but there's no way to drive it home until someone actually goes through and they're like, oh, you told me that it was a lot. And I didn't believe, we've heard that too. And it's honest, and I didn't believe you. I'm like, I know you didn't believe me. And that's fine. It's not for you to believe me. I'm putting it at your feet and you pick it up when you're ready. This is a calling. It is a lifestyle. It feeds into every part of your life. It puts a giant spotlight on all the dark areas of your life that you don't want to talk about, that you don't want to look at. I do not believe that you can go into this work keeping those areas in the dark and be of the service that you want to be in and not get burnt out or completely lose it. Seriously. Because it's so big. And I don't say this to be disheartening, and I don't say this to scare people away. I say it because it's the truth. And I say it because I'm not even an herbalist. I say it because I live with one and I see firsthand everything this encompasses. And I see firsthand what it's like to run a business that is at its heart to be of service to people, balancing paying a mortgage, balancing raising a family and paying your rent for a space, right? Balancing all of these things on top of someone coming in that has stage 4 cancer and they're freaked out and how are you going to hold space for that person with all the other things that are happening in your own life, right?
And that doesn't mean you have everything together in your own life. But that's why your practices are so important. That is why your herbal practices, your spiritual practice, whatever your practices are, whatever you want to call them, that is why that is incredibly important, because at least you have that foundation to return to as you're navigating things in your own personal life. Because you live a long enough life, you're going to experience challenges, and you still have to figure out how to be in the roles that you are in while you're experiencing challenges.
Right.
But that can't, it can't be thinking about rent, mortgage, all these other things while someone comes to you saying, I have my best friend, my best friend has stage 4 cancer, and how. And I would say everything that you were saying too, you have an added weight if you think that in addition to your life and the roles that you play in your life, if you add on top of that, I have to save everyone who comes to me. That's not your responsibility.
That's a lot.
You can't do that. And we even hear it too, where it's like, I remember somebody recently commented, I'm not sure which video it was on, but it's like, if my grandmother, if my mother knew herbal medicine or was open to herbal medicine, then she wouldn't have died from XYZ. And it's like, We don't know. Like,
that's
we don't. The reason why we say it's too hard to save other people, you don't know their story.
Yeah.
You don't know their journey. You don't know their path. You don't know so much about them.
Yeah.
Even if they are close family members. You don't know what people are thinking, how they're feeling. We have free will always. So when people choose to transition, that's just as much of a choice as when they chose to come.
Yeah.
So it's like you don't get to decide that. None of any of that. So you can take that responsibility off of your shoulder because you have enough just being in your own life.
Yeah.
And you don't need to add trying to save somebody from theirs. And the best way to like model for our loved ones, like to support them, is to model, like live it. That's why Tammy says like this is a whole lifestyle. There's no shortcuts. There's no quick fixes. We are so ingrained to believe that. And the more that people stop believing that lie, that there's a shortcut, that there's a quick fix, actually the faster you'll get there, wherever there is.
Right.
If you just go through the process. I lost my train of thought.
But even for your loved ones, I mean, we've got
it was to like.
But even for your
inspire,
loved ones,
right?
The best way really is to model.
Just to model, like be it, embody it. Because
then, in anything we tell y'all and anything we talk about, this is from our own personal experience. This is just our lived experience and how we have shown up and how life has unfolded for us. But this is specific to family members because a lot of people want to help a family member. And at one point or another, we too have wanted to help family members, what have you. And our words don't help. Our words don't help, and our words don't
just
teach.
Add resistance.
But our actions for ourselves do. So when we turn that spotlight on ourselves and we start making changes and we start showing up just for us, then people start asking questions. Then you have an opening.
Yeah.
But if you just keep trying to force this on somebody, it has not worked well in our experience. And when we have seen real change for people's lives, it has been, we just live our lives. We just do us. And the questions come in. And when a question comes in, we answer that question. That's it. No more, no less.
No
you
tangents.
Ask this, like that's, and that's hard for me because I'm a rambler. But that question and
that's it.
And that's it.
Because that curiosity, that does indicate readiness, but it's that question.
Right.
If they have more questions, they'll continue to ask questions. But it's like we don't decide that level of readiness for people. This is why forcing doesn't work. They're not ready yet. And maybe they don't want to hear it from you.
And that's the and then we're gonna wrap this up. But that's the other part. When dealing with family, this could be a whole live all in itself.
Right.
So even don't feel some sort of way when your family doesn't come to you to be their health practitioner, their herbalist, and they go to somebody else. Those relationships they're so close. It's so complicated. It's so entangled. And at first, I'd be like, Salima is right here. Like, I don't understand why you're not asking her. And then I was like,
that would just make it so much more challenging.
It does make it more. Let me be whoever it is. Let me be the daughter. Let me be the daughter-in-law. Let me be the sister. Let me be that. Because you can't wear too many hats because now you're stepping on toes. Sometimes the person you don't know is the one who can break through and give you the most help. Sometimes when the relationship is too close,
it's
you just can't hear it from them.
Yeah.
It's like a lot of times you hear that with married couples. Like, I just said this to you, but a complete stranger says it, and it's like a light bulb went off for that person that they're like, oh my gosh. And then their spouse,
what this person said?
And the spouse is like, I say this to you all the time. Sometimes you're just too close.
So don't take offense. That's really good. Don't take offense. And you also unless, because that does happen where like people they become caretakers, right? That's different.
That is
if you are
different.
becoming the caretaker for another family member, then that is different. But it's still a collaboration. And I think sometimes when we are so deep into just like herbalism or something, we want to like force our way. Like, no, this, you got to do this, this, this. And that's just going to create more tension and resistance. So it's like, remember, like people heal themselves. Like you said in the last live, like let people have their ownership over that. You're taking away their win when you say or think that you saved them.
Right.
Or that you healed them. That's theirs to own. Yeah.
So I think that's a good note.
That's good. All right.
Thank you, everyone. Anyone that's new to our channels, I am Tammy. This is Salima. People sometimes get us confused until they know us and they never confuse us again. We're co-owners of Iwilla Remedy. We have committed to doing lives
3 times
a month. This is the 3rd time this month, so you all won't see us again until February. But we always want to give everyone an opportunity to get their specific questions answered. And so that's what this forum is, based on particular topics. And we really appreciate you showing up with us this Sunday afternoon on the East Coast. I'm not sure where
folks chimed in,
where everyone's chiming in from, but we really appreciate it. We really enjoy this time. I look forward to this. I love this time.
I love it. And the tech is getting easier where it's like, boom, 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 we're ready.
Well, we just hit record now because we've spent some time on our tech and we've gotten it good. And if our IG people go over to YouTube to ask your specific questions, because I'm sure that there are questions in the IG chat that we didn't get to because it's a little cumbersome. But I'm pretty sure we answered all questions for the YouTube. And we appreciate this so much. Thank you, IG. Thank you, YouTube.
Subscribe.
Yes, like, subscribe, and
wait, I was gonna say, and if you have a question, because these were like the top 3 that we did for the last 3. So if you have a question, also
send it to us.
Send them.
So for YouTube, I put our email address in the chat, and for IG, our email to get to us is help, HELP, @iwillaremedy.com. And so, yes, if you could give us your questions, that would be fantastic. And we'll do a live completely around it.
That'd be great.
Right?
Yeah.
All right, y'all.
Yay.
Yes. Oh, that was the other thing. Thank you so much. I wanted to say the replays are always available after we're done on IG and on YouTube. When the magic machines have done all of their processing, it will automatically go up. So I think make sure you subscribe and perhaps like and
please share.
And share. Oh, please share.
Please share.
And I think you'll be informed that it is there. If not, just check back and it'll be there under the live section. Any other questions, help@iwillaremedy.com. And thank you so much. We so appreciate it. And we hope you have an amazing rest of Sunday, if that is the day you are in. Bye.
Boom.